Hey guys, Spudknocker here, as always, and today we're going to take a look at one of my favorite new weapons here in DCS World. Well, it's not that new of a weapon. The A-10 guys had access to it for quite a long time, but now the pointy-nosed pilots, like myself, are able to use them as well, and that is the CBU-97 SFW, or Sensor Fused Weapon System. And it is essentially a cluster bomb, but with a very cool and very nasty surprise inside. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen videos out there of CBU-97s being used on ranges and things like that. It's a very, very cool and interesting weapon as to how it works. Basically, it's your standard cluster bomb, but with, think of them as rocket-propelled grenades, smart rocket-propelled grenades that pop out, have a rocket booster that fires, and sends it back up into the sky, spinning at a tremendous rate, then flips out all of these smaller rocket-propelled grenades that then have an IR sensor, and as they spin at an incredibly high RPM, they find a target, whether it's a tank, a vehicle, or say an aircraft sitting on the ramp, and then hits that vehicle. The rocket booster fires, it goes down, it hits that vehicle, and if it finds a vehicle to hit, it explodes as a armor-penetrating weapon. And if it does not find a vehicle to hit, it explodes just above the ground as a standard kind of fragmentation type grenade or cluster munition system. It is a very, very, very cool weapon, and Eagle Dynamics could have taken the shortcut and just made a little cool effect that made it look sort of similar to that when you're looking over your shoulder when you're pulling off the target and you see the weapon explode. But Eagle Dynamics went the extra mile and put together a very, very cool animation that shows exactly what's happening with the weapon and how it works, and it looks very similar to a lot of real-life videos of this weapon going off, but of course with some video game-isms or sim-isms, I guess you could say, thrown in there as to some animations can't be made absolutely perfect. And as you guys can see here, we're repping the Republic of Korea Air Force, or ROKAF. That's the South Korean Air Force, for those who maybe don't understand what the Republic of Korea is. And the ROKAF flies a number of F-16s, along with other older F-4E Phantom IIs, even some older F-4Ds, as well as some F-15K Strike Eagle variants. Now, the ROK did in fact build F-16s locally, and has coined them the KF-16, and we'll go ahead and hop in the cockpit and get started with taking a look at this very cool and interesting weapon system. So due to the fact that there's no auto throttles, I got a little bit slow there in that orbit. We'll make sure we kick it into Cat 3, because we do have quite a heavy load on the aircraft. The reason why we are not able to carry 3 of these weapons on the triple ejector rack that we have on the jet at the moment is because the weapon is very fat and would knock into the sides of our external fuel tanks, as well as it's a 1,000-pound class weapon, so it's a bit heavier than your regular cluster munitions, where like your CBU-99s that you're used to carrying around on your F-18 are in the roughly 750-pound category, if I remember correctly. So let's go ahead and push the throttles up, and we'll kick her out of autopilot. Now, this weapon is best used when you're trying to drop a large number of them all at once onto a target, be it a ramp on an airfield or a column of vehicles moving through the countryside, or static defensive positions with tanks dug in, dropping like all 4 of our bombs all on a stick right together, and that just increases your kill probability with these weapons. Even though the pseudo rocket propelled grenades that pop out of the weapon are very smart and have that IR sensor on them that detects targets like vehicles and things, it's not 100% foolproof. They do miss, and they definitely miss targets. I think they have kind of a chance or hit probability built into those little grenades here in DCS World, as I usually can either get no kills on a target and they all completely whiff and miss, or I can kill an entire string of trucks with only one of these weapons. So it kind of is up to chance a little bit in that respect, but that's alright. It's still a very, very cool and interesting weapon that we have access to here in DCS. So I'm not going to fly tactically or anything like that. This video purpose of it is really to show off the weapon to you guys. So I'm just going to do what I need to do to get the best weapon solution I can possibly get. And for the purposes of filming this, I'm just going to go ahead and drop singles. And if you can see my little labels down here on our airfield target range area, we've got a column of tanks and armored vehicles, a couple M113s, some BMPs, some T-72s and T-55s down there to drop against. So the best way to do that is to plop all of your bombs, whether you're dropping singles or a whole stick, right in the middle of that column of vehicles to give the little smart grenades that pop out the best probability of finding a target and thus hitting the target. So we're going to go ahead and pop it into slow motion so you guys can see the whole animation and how they work. Alright, so we'll go ahead and dive down on this target. Make sure master arm's on. I was a bit late for that, but that's alright. Got our CCIP reticle coming up, and pickle. So we'll get the aircraft coming up. We'll just do a bit of a trim. Why don't we go ahead and pause it, and we can go over to our weapon view, and we can see our weapon as it falls. And why don't we slow down time just a little bit. And we can see the weapon falling, and we can see that the weapon system of our F-16 has corrected for wind, and it should drift into that column of vehicles as the wind comes across the weapon. You can see that correction. Okay, so that's the bursting effect of the weapon, and when you're in the regular weapon view mode, when it bursts, usually those camera will zoom out and the weapon will go away. But if we hit that weapon view mode one more time, we can see the bursted projectile here, and we can continue following it on down in slow motion. And we can see all these different objects coming out of the weapon, all the different little canisters with their grenade parts, and we'll hit weapon view again. We'll hit weapon view again, and we can see one of these little canisters here, and there should be about 4 of them. There's usually about 4 that pop out with our animation here in DCS World. And we can see it start to spin as that rocket fires, and that one didn't work well, so we'll go ahead and hit weapon select again. And sometimes they fail. They just don't work, just like that one did. And like I said, I think there's a probability built in to whether or not the weapon system is going to work. And as we look over our shoulder here, we can see we got absolutely nothing out of that one. But that's alright, we'll go ahead and come around for another try. It's just kind of part of the joy of using these weapons, and that's why you kind of want to get drop as many as you can in one pass, because like I said, it doesn't always work 100% every time. I'm trying to trim this out for this rather asymmetric loadout that we've got now, with 1,000 pounds being knocked off the left side of the jet. So we'll go ahead and bring her back up to altitude so we can come around for another drop. Now part of the problem seems to be partly my fault with that drop. The weapon tends to like shallower dive angles when it comes to dropping the weapon on the target area. So hopefully for this next pass we'll get a much better view. But you guys definitely saw up close how the weapon pops open and disperses its grenade-like projectiles with those kind of sub-sections spinning at a high velocity that then tosses out those smart grenades that then in turn start spinning again. Now what's very interesting to me as kind of a geek about this stuff is the G-forces that those little bomblets and those canisters, those kind of sub-munition canisters that are full of grenades, they must be under incredible amounts of G-forces as they fire their rocket to spin up and start coming back up off the target, gaining altitude, after having broken out of the canister in its free fall from the aircraft. And so those lots of little parts for those little IR sensors and whatnot need to be incredibly strong to resist all of those G-forces. And that's partially why I think it's so interesting. So let's go ahead and go back to our bomb view here. And we'll let it fall a little bit more in regular motion. And now we'll go ahead and pause it again. And we'll slow down time a little bit for us. And we can see we've definitely got a good drop on the target. Okay, it burst again. Let's go ahead and look at it. And we can see that lots of different canisters coming out of it. And those intermediate little puffs are the rockets from those sub-munitions firing. And we've got a better view of it this time. We can see two of those guys. And now, as they're spinning, they release those little sub-bomblets that we can see. We can see 1, 2, 3, 4 of them have popped out of this little sub-munition that popped out of the bomb originally. And we can see them start to fire. So we'll slow down the time a little bit more. And we can see those grenades start firing into the tanks. We got 2 kills on 2 tanks. And we can see as these large flashes that look like the regular kind of animation in DCS world of those of regular CBU bomblets explode. They're exploding above the ground because the IR sensor of that little grenade didn't find a target. And so thus it's rushing and shooting back down to the ground and exploding right above the ground as a large shrapnel projectile. So basically we can see that happening, and we can see that there's a 3rd kill as we get another one of those smart grenades hitting a tank for a 3rd time. One just missed that middle tank over there, but it's still burning, so I think we got a kill on it. And we can see that that one was just a very, very devastating drop as we got 3 tanks, 3 armored vehicles with 1 cluster bomb. That's pretty unbelievable, especially if you've been frustrated playing with cluster bombs in DCS World before as a Hornet pilot. So that is quite the thing there. So we can see we've got 2 tanks that seem to have gone kind of close to each other. And we can see that destruction that we left down there. So I believe that both the probability of the weapon hitting and killing things is a factor, as well as my dive angle for that first drop was a bit on the steep side. So we'll make sure we keep it a bit shallower with our airspeed being a bit faster. So we'll come back around again, and we'll take a different look at the weapon exploding this time. We'll go to the view from the ground and look at it slow motion from the view from the ground. It's definitely a very, very cool animation. And like I said earlier, I mean, ED, they could have just done something that looked great from the cockpit, and we would have never known unless you zoomed in and slowed things down like that. When I first dropped these, I was watching the bomb fall, because I knew these were kind of special weapons, and then I saw that animation, at least a little bit of it, and then I dropped another one and slowed the time down to actually look at the animation, and I realized just how pretty amazing and intricate that animation really was. And we can see down there that we did in fact kill 3 of those armored vehicles. And it looks like we got 3 left down there in that little column we attacked starting off. And I'm just lining up these 2 here so I can put one of these bombs right in the middle between those 2 vehicles that are a bit closer together. And pickle. So come off the target, and we'll go back to our weapon view. And we can see the bomb start to fall. And it's just about to burst right there. So why don't we go to our view from these tanks here. And we should be able to see that, oh, there's the weapon. So we'll zoom out this way, and we can see the weapon right here. And we'll zoom in using the FOV zoom a bit, just like that. And we'll zoom it in 3 times. And we can see that initial burst, and we can see everything start to pop out. All these little parachutes of all these little sub-munitions in different parts as they start to fire their rockets and spin up, getting ready to throw out their smart grenades, as we're calling them. Or smart projectiles, I guess you could say. And one just released its grenades. There goes another. And we can see them start to shoot. Oh, just missed that one tank. And there goes another one. Just looks like it just missed again. And there goes another. Just missed again. Oh, looks like we just got a kill on that one tank. Looks like enough of them hit. And it looks like that's all she wrote. And we can see the carnage from those other tanks as well. So we'll make sure we don't have it quite as zoomed out. Oh, that's not good. Hopefully we can save this. And we did. It's really just a matter of us looking at the bomb view. I'm usually not that enough while flying, especially just on the range. And it looks like we got one bomb left to play with. And we can see that tank is definitely still burning. The M113's okay. I'm not so sure if that guy on the top is okay though. With all that shrapnel flying around from those smart projectiles that exploded just above the ground, as they didn't quite hit those armored vehicles. So we'll come back around for a third drop. So the way the smaller smart grenades, as we're calling them, can be both a fragmentation and a penetration warhead at the same time is the penetrator is an explosively formed penetrator. So the actual penetrator itself is formed by the explosions, and it can explode in 2 different modes, whether or not the IR seeker that is on those little smart projectiles sees a tank or not, or another armored vehicle or an aircraft, whatever it sees. It then switches mode and goes over to a fragmentation blast rather than the armored penetrator blast. Go ahead and drop on that one little M113 down there that did not get damaged from that last drop. So it seems to me that for the most part these things either get a large amount of kills, they definitely kill something, or they completely whiff and don't even damage something. And it's kind of up to chance. It seems to be a bit. And pickle. Get our jet more pointed up into the sky this time. Alright, we'll pause it and we'll go over to our weapon view again. And we can see it dropping right on top. Alright, there's the burst right on top of that M113. And so why don't we go ahead and go to the M113 view And let's see, we'll zoom it out just a little bit this time. All right, there's our warhead exploding. We'll try and get a better view this time. Won't be so zoomed in. And we'll slow down time a bit. And we can see those three right there. We've got a much better field of view, I think, for this shot. Hopefully they don't totally whiff and we can get some good shots of those guys hitting that M113 right there. Kind of tilt the camera a little bit, get a better view. We can see those grenades starting to pop out. Look at that. Boom, boom, and M113 totally and completely dead. And the rest of those smart bomblets are going to keep exploding around the area as a fragmentation. Now I think this is kind of where the limitation of DCS world kind of comes in. I think if this were real life, a lot more of the little smart grenades would actually seek in and try to hit that M113 after it was, you know, completely dead, because it's just an IR sensor. It doesn't know, and there's no way it can know whether or not a target is dead or alive, whether that vehicle is completely destroyed, just a little bit damaged, totally fine, whatever. So I think even though we are seeing lots of fragmentation blasts from those smart grenades popping up around this M113 that we see here, I think in real life a lot more of these might be just continuing on and trying to just smash apart that M113, being completely overkill on that dead vehicle. But that's kind of it. So as you can see here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kills on armored vehicles with 4 bombs dropped. And this kill ratio would probably be a lot bigger if we had dropped all 4 of our weapons across a string of that original convoy. Well, we hopefully would have been able to kill all 6 armored vehicles with 4 weapons. As you can see, our first weapon was a complete and total whiff, and our subsequent weapons were, you know, more or less effective, and some with a 3 kill, some with just 1. And it's kind of, like I said, kind of a luck of the draw kind of thing, but it is still an incredibly interesting and cool weapon. So let's go ahead and pause it again, and as we can see, those little smart grenades, because they are spinning so fast, the probability kind of comes in as to whether or not the IR sensor, which is spinning at just the same RPM as that as the smart grenade itself, is whether or not it can actually see a target when the sensor terminates its time active. And so as we can see, some of those smart grenades, they don't find a target and they go off in a pretty random direction. They go off and they hit pretty far away from the epicenter of the burst of the weapon. And as we can see there, there's definitely some satellites out there, 2 of them that are pretty close together, 1 that's just kind of really scattered way the heck out there. But as we can see from the puffs of dust on the ground, on the desert floor down there, that there are quite a few shrapnel projectiles that come out of those when it does form a shrapnel explosion right above the ground. So any personnel who may be walking around outside of these armored vehicles, soldiers riding on the backs of these armored vehicles, things like that, even if these grenades don't sense and hit the tank right on with a explosively formed penetrator, they will not be happy. They will just be torn up by that shrapnel that's down there and thrown out by those smart grenades as they explode in a non-penetrator fashion. So that's that very cool and interesting weapon that's now available to the pointy-nosed fans of jets here in DCS world. Definitely cured my frustration when it comes to cluster munitions here in DCS, and hopefully it can interest you guys and be a very cool new weapon you guys can play with the F-16. So thanks to whoever, I don't quite remember at the moment, who made this very cool Republic of Korea Air Force skin for the F-16C, and turned our F-16 into a KF-16 today. So thanks a lot, guys. If you liked the video, please subscribe, and definitely give the video a like, and consider supporting us on Patreon. So thanks a lot, guys, and see you later.